Welcome to Mom Talk Radio, the show that tackles topics important to you and your family. Finances, food, education, technology, and everything in between. We've got it covered on Mom Talk.
Welcome to Mom Talk Radio. I'm Michelle Jerson, the Passport Mommy, and excited for our show today. We have a great lineup. We're going to talk with author Elliot Katz. And when he emailed me about his book, Being the Strong Man a Woman Wants, Timeless Wisdom on Being a Man, I said, you have to come on the show. So we're going to talk with him. We're going to talk with Katherine Bruce. She is the manager on market insights for Cotton Incorporated. She's going to talk to us about holiday planning and what people are doing so far, because, you know, even though it's October, people are already talking about the holidays. I went to see Dear Evan Hansen last week on Broadway, and as a mom, I thought it was the most incredible show, and it hit my heartstrings. And so I want to talk to you about that. And then we're going to be talking with a psychologist who's going to shed some light on anxiety in children, because that is part of Dear Evan Hansen's theme. And then finally, Dr. Donnica Moore is going to talk about a health issue that affects many women, but not many of us really like to talk about. So first up, we have author Elliot Katz. Hi, Elliot. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Good to be here, Michelle. Thanks for having me.
Sure. So tell me, when did you write this book, and what was the inspiration behind Being the Strong Man a Woman Wants, Timeless Wisdom on Being a Man?
Well, I wrote the book a few years ago, and the inspiration was, like a lot of books of this type, my own journey. I was married, I got divorced, and like a lot of people at first, I blamed the other person. Then I came to the point of asking myself, what do I have to learn from all this? And so I set out on a journey to learn, what does it mean to be a man in a relationship, to be a husband and a father.
Mm-hmm.
I started talking to other men. The more I talked to other men, the more I realized we're all confused. Then I started reading books that, they really didn't answer my questions. And it was only when I turned to those teachings that, for generations, fathers and other older male role models used to teach younger men, I was blown away, because it coincided with what I heard women complain is lacking in men today. They don't show leadership, they don't make decisions, so they don't take responsibility. There seems to be this giant disconnect between all these confusing messages that men are hearing and what women really want.
Yes, absolutely. And I have to say that I have dated, I'm married now, but I have dated guys, one in particular, who could never make a decision about anything. We would go out to a restaurant and he would hem and haw over that menu for, a good 30 minutes. And we would be with friends and they'd be like, just make a decision already. Or even now, some situations I'll say to my husband, hey, what do you think about this? I don't care. I don't care. And I'm like, well, I'm asking you for a reason. I want your opinion.
Exactly. You know, I have heard this so many times from women. Single women will say, a guy asks me out, then he has no plan. He can't even choose a place to go for a cup of coffee. And then when they finally get to a place, he can't even choose a table to sit at. And,
yeah. It's amazing what so gets meant. Sorry, go ahead.
And then with married people, a wife will ask her husband about even like simple things, like she'll call him at work and say, what would you like for supper tonight, chicken or fish? And he says, oh, why is she calling me? Whatever you make, whatever you want, you decide.
Right.
And they don't understand. She called you because she wants you to make the decision. She wants you to be the man. And she doesn't want a controlling tyrant, but she wants a man who can make a decision and show some leadership. And it's amazing how, when I talk to men, it's like they've never heard this before, and they'll disagree with me. But whenever I talk to women about this, they all say, yeah, exactly. Men, they don't act like men today.
Right. Exactly. And what is it? I always thought, well, maybe I just have a misconception of what I would like in a man, and maybe it's unrealistic, and maybe I am looking for something that's just not out there. But why is it that men just are not being as authoritative as women would like these days?
Yeah, I don't like the word authoritative. That sounds like about controlling. It's really about being a leader. And it's really because so many men today really weren't taught these things. It's like a man has to learn these things. It doesn't come naturally to them. And, they learn it from their father or another male role model. And just think, so many boys today, they grow up in families, the parents are divorced, or if they're not divorced, their fathers work long hours, or maybe their fathers were just like, yes, dear, and they weren't really a healthy role model. they go to school. Most teachers are women. They watch television. Men are portrayed as, incapable buffoons. And so when you say to them, you got to be a leader and make decisions and take responsibility and don't blame your wife when something goes wrong.
Right.
It's like they're shocked. They've never heard this before. Like I've given talks to groups and, I've explained these ideas and men will turn to the woman and say, he's not right. That's not what women want. And the woman will say, yeah, listen to him. That's exactly what women want.
Exactly. So what can a woman do instead of getting so frustrated with her husband where I feel like she could then start lashing out of just being upset? She just starts getting mad. And that's when fights start because the husband doesn't understand why she's on his case so much. What could a woman do to encourage the guy to be the man that she wants him to be?
Well, first, ask him to take charge of a situation. See, men, like a lot of times, it doesn't matter to a man, so he'll just say, you handle it, or he's afraid of being criticized, and he thinks, well, this is playing it safe. If he just avoids leadership, he doesn't realize, she's losing respect for him. So ask him to take charge of a situation, but don't tell him what to do. And if he asks, just say, well, I don't know. Do research. That's what I do. And then, don't contradict him because, it's like a sapling. You're trying to encourage him to grow and be a leader. So don't contradict him unless, he's going to do something very dangerous. And then when he finally does it and realize he may handle it differently than you, but that's okay, and tell him how much you appreciate him and praise him for doing it. And the same thing with decisions. If he says, you want to go to restaurant A or restaurant B, just say, you decide, and then don't say another word.
Right.
Let him decide. Let him decide. He'll say, oh, yeah. But in his mind, he thinks, I'm being a nice guy. I'll let her decide. I'm showing her I'm not controlling. Nobody wants anybody controlling, but they want a man who's a man who can make a decision. I've heard so many women say this. It's really fascinating, and then the men just don't get it. You really have to teach it to them and encourage them. Let them make the decisions. Don't criticize them. And if it's a bad decision, just say, well, we learned from it. Let them encourage him.
Yeah. And that's a really good point because I think women demand that a guy make a decision, but then when they do, like you said, they might be criticizers or then argue with them. So the guy thinks, well, then why bother? Why bother making the decision?
Exactly. They feel in their mind, I'm playing it safe. This way she can't criticize me if things go wrong. But he gets criticized anyway because he'll say, well, why did you let me make that decision? You knew it wasn't the right thing to do. Why didn't you say anything? But, just let him decide. And the thing is, men don't really realize that the woman really wants him to be a man and show some leadership, not a controlling tyrant, but step forward. You see a problem, step forward. And that's why I tell men, how do you establish yourself as a leader? Look for situations that are not being dealt with that need to be dealt with. Don't, she's handling it, don't undermine her, but look for the situations that are not being dealt with, step forward, find a solution, implement it. And just keep doing it. It's like, whoa, it's like that you'll be her hero because that's what she wants.
Yeah, exactly. Now, what do you do? Because there are certain things I'll say to my husband, I really wish you would take care of this end of things, or I really wish you would look into this. I really wish everything didn't fall on me. And he would just say, well, I'm not good at that stuff. You're better at it than I am. But I just wish he would try to take the initiative, little minor things. So how do I encourage that?
Well, if he says he's not good, just say, no, I think you'd be very good at it, and I really would like you to take care of it, and please take care of it. And then don't say anything more. Just let him do it. Just let him do it. And then
it doesn't get done. It then sits around and nothing gets done.
Well, just say, we need this done by such and such a date. Could you please take care of it?
Right.
And the more you say it and you show that you really mean it and you praise him, because men like to be praised, women too, but everybody likes to be praised. Everybody likes to feel their work is valued. They don't want to be criticized. Right. So just tell them, I think you're the right person to make this decision. I think I know your background. You have the ability to handle this really well. So please take care of it because I'm going to mess up.
Yeah, I like that. So you are the author of 7 nonfiction books in addition to this one. What do your other books revolve around? What types of topics?
Well, you know what? They're all, the others are all outdoors books. Like that's what I was really into. Like they're books about hiking and bicycling. And,
I love it.
But then, like this book, Being the Strong Man and Woman, wants really in some form of a story of a grandfather going with his grandson on a hike, and the grandfather's teaching the grandson these insights that men need to learn that he didn't learn from his own father, and because he's having problems in his marriage and he can't understand it, why his wife is so frustrated with him. That's the thing. Like, men think, I'm being so nice, I'm being so non-controlling. Why is she fed up with me? Why is she so frustrated with me? I've had women say to me, if my husband had understood this, our marriage would not have disintegrated. Or a single woman say, how could I get married with a man who won't take responsibility?
Right.
If I marry him, I'm trusting him with my life. And he's being passive.
100%. Well, Elliot Katz, this is all great advice. I cannot wait to read the book, Being the Strong Man a Woman Wants, Timeless Wisdom on Being a Man. Real quick, Elliot, where can everybody find this book?
The book's available on Amazon as a paperback and an ebook, and it's also in bookstores, and if the store is sold out, ask them and they'll order it for you and get it to you pretty quickly.
Thank you so much for joining me today.
Okay. Thanks for having me, Michelle.
Well, I think this is a book that every man or woman could definitely use and read, and we can all use some tips because relationships are not easy. Coming up next, we have Katherine Bruce from Cotton Incorporated. She's going to talk about trends in holiday shopping. You're listening to Mom Talk Radio. I'm Michelle Jerson with Passport Mommy. More coming up in just a few.
Mom Talk Radio, a busy mom's best friend.
Welcome back to Passport Mommy. I'm Michelle Jerson, and I have with me Katherine Bruce. She is the Manager Market Insights in the Corporate Strategy and Program Metrics Department of Cotton Incorporated. And Cotton Incorporated has a lifestyle monitor survey. It's monitored consumer behavior and preferences to analyze the what, why, and how surrounding our shopping methods. Katherine, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks so much for having me.
Sure. So I wanted to talk with you because I know it's only what are we in? The end of October? Not even? Middle of October? And we're already thinking about shopping. And I know for me, when it comes to the holidays, I always end up leaving it for the last minute. And I really want to make a concerted effort not to do that this year. And I'm busy. I have an 18-month-old. And so it's really difficult for me to get to the stores. And I'm just curious because I know I order mostly everything online now. How are you finding consumers are shopping the most?
So, I am right there with you. We just got through ordering Halloween costumes, and we can't even think about Christmas yet. But, we find that actually a quarter of consumers think about holiday shopping throughout the year. So I will meet one of those people one day, but there is a lot of planning that can go into holiday shopping. And we find that, busy consumers will use online, order stuff, possibly ship it to the store. We find 57% like that option, as well as going in the store. So we really see a lot of blending of options with so many available. So we do find that still 73% of consumers say they enjoy the experience of going into stores. They like the decorations. They like the holiday music, and that can help them sort of get in that mindset to start going. So it's really about options and about using, all those resources available.
Yeah. And I feel like when it comes to the holiday music, whether it's playing on the radio really early or in the stores, people either love it or hate it. They're like, what do you mean there's Christmas decorations already? We're not even at Halloween. Or they really like knowing that everything's coming up. So what are some other results that you have found from the Lifestyle Monitor survey?
So we do find that consumers are planning to spend about $680 on gifts this holiday season. They buy for an average of 7 people, so that totals up to about $100 per person. So you can expect to get some nice gifts this year, hopefully.
Wow.
And of that, it's a big chunk of money. And of that, about $240 is going to be spent on clothing. So we do see those categories being very important, and holiday shopping being very robust this year.
Okay. Now, I know sometimes the people who are closest to me, I have the most trouble finding gifts for or trying to figure out what should I get them. Where do people turn for inspiration?
So, unfortunately, my brother does not follow this, but the most popular source of inspiration is to ask the person that you're giving to. So 41% of people say that is their source, that is a source of inspiration. Other people, family, friends, colleagues, remain, a very important source. And then, of course, new sources, social media, the websites of retailers and brands. We find that planning is an increasingly important part of people's shopping. So that while they still very much like going in stores, they like to plan that out beforehand, and they use a lot of those digital resources to do that.
Right. Now, I find, Black Friday is coming up next month. And I know I used to line up very early in the morning. Mm-hmm. I have not done that in a few years because I just think it's crazy. And also, we can do so much of that online now. How are you finding people are shopping according to sales days? And how are they taking advantage of promotions throughout the year?
So sales days are still a great catalyst for people, whether it be because they like that experience of getting up early and going with friends, or because it's a reminder that it's time to get in gear, right? So we see that 41% of consumers say they plan to shop in store on Black Friday, and 47% say they plan to shop online on Black Friday. But of course, we have Amazon Prime Day, Thanksgiving, day after Thanksgiving, Small Business Saturday. We have lots of days, and we find that each of them are popular times for consumers to think about, plan shopping, and finally make those purchases.
Yeah. What would you say are some of the hot products this year that people are going to purchase for the holidays?
So, we ask every year about the clothing or the types of products people buy, and clothing and gift cards are top on the list. So 56% of consumers say they're going to buy clothing as gifts, and gift cards is right about there. Toys and electronics are also favorites for particularly my 9-year-old.
Right.
But so we do find a bit of diversification as people kind of try out new products and new categories of products as gifts, but those four are kind of year after year are popular choices for gifts.
Yeah. And you know what? I used to think that gift cards are so boring and you should be creative and do your own thing. But you know what? Now that I have a baby or a toddler now, I think gift cards are wonderful because they don't take up space and you could use them whenever you want to. Katherine Bruce, thank you so much for joining me today. I look forward to following Cotton Incorporated's Lifestyle Monitor survey even further, and happy shopping. I hope it goes well for you and smoothly this year.
Sounds good. You too. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Coming up next, I'm going to talk about the show Dear Evan Hansen. I just saw it on Broadway. It was amazing. And we're going to also talk to a psychologist about anxiety in children as it related to the show. More coming up. I'm Michelle Jerson.
Mom Talk Radio, a busy mom's best friend.
On the outside, always looking in, will I ever be more than I've always been? 'Cause I'm tapping on the glass, waving through a window.
Welcome back to Mom Talk Radio. I'm Michelle Jerson, the Passport Mommy. And part of what I love to do is going to see Broadway shows. And I'm lucky enough to be located here in New York City. So even though I haven't seen one in quite a while because my baby was a newborn and then things just get really busy, I finally got back to the theater and I went to go see Dear Evan Hansen last week. And it was incredible. And I don't know if there was a dry eye in the theater. It was so impactful and so amazing. And I feel like I probably would have felt emotionally connected whether or not I'm a mom. But the fact that I'm now a mom and I watched the dynamic between Evan Hansen, his mom, the other family in the show, it was so powerful and so meaningful on so many levels. And so I just wanted to kind of tell you how much I enjoyed it. So if you are visiting New York City or if you do live here, this is definitely a show you have to see, especially as a parent. And I can't believe the show has been opened already on Broadway for 2 years almost. It opened on Broadway at the Music Box Theater in December 2016. It broke all box office records. It's still playing to sold out houses, which is incredible. The show won 6 Tony Awards, including Best Musical, also won the 2018 Grammy Award for Best Musical Theater Album. And Taylor Trench, who just joined the Broadway company, is Evan Hansen. He joined in February 2018. He was starring alongside Bette Midler, David Hyde Pierce, and Hello Dolly. Is incredible. And he took on the role and he made it his own. And he just really draws you in. And what's really exciting now about Dear Evan Hansen is that they just launched their first national tour this month in Denver. So even if you can't make it to New York City, the show is going to play in more than 50 cities over the next few years. The production will also have sit-down productions in Toronto and London. So definitely a show I recommend. Go get the Cast album. It's amazing. And I have to say, I had heard some of the songs before I went to see the show, but I just didn't realize how the show was going to play out based on those songs. And even the woman that was sitting next to me, she says, yeah, I knew the music, but I just thought that there was a different storyline. And so that's what's so neat about this. It really is still a very unexpected storyline, and there are surprises around every corner. And I rave about it because I just thought it was such an important show for both parents and children and teenagers to see. And I don't want to over-explain the plot because I want to leave it to you, but I will say that it does tie into anxiety in children and in teenagers. And for that, I wanted to bring an expert onto the show, and I have with me Teodora Pavkovic, and she is a psychologist, speaker, and parenting coach with over 10 years of international experience working with children and parents with emotional and behavioral difficulties, as well as adults with mood and anxiety issues. Teodora, thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi, Michelle. Thank you so much for having me.
Sure. So tell me, I think a lot of times parents don't realize how prevalent anxiety might be within children, whether they're younger, in elementary school, middle, or high school. What is your experience as a psychologist in working with parents who maybe have children who are going through anxiety issues?
Yeah, well, one of the most important things really is to understand what the symptoms of anxiety are. And they do appear to be somewhat different with younger children as compared to adults. But I think overall there are very few surprises there and quite a few overlaps in terms of the symptoms. So for younger children, anxiety often manifests through some clingy behavior. So things like not wanting to be too far away from the parent or caregiver, or not dealing well with new and unknown settings and people. There's just a nervousness there that isn't that difficult to spot, actually. And again, with younger children especially, we do often see physical symptoms come up. So things like headaches, stomach aches, inability to hold down food, things like that. You might often hear I can't do X, Y, or Z because my tummy hurts. Mm-hmm. And then in terms of the emotions and the behavior, there's some things there that I think are really important for parents to just kind of keep a lookout for. So what you often tend to see is that a couple of our oldest emotions will play out, and these are anger and fear. And it's important to be aware of the fact that anxiety does come from fear and anticipatory fear. And so you're likely to see your child exhibit this emotion in different ways. And for anyone who has seen Inside Out, the fantastic Disney Pixar film, you may remember the antagonistic relationship between fear and anger. So anger was always bullying fear. Why? Well, because if you're afraid, you're feeling insecure, you're feeling vulnerable and powerless. And the shortest path to feeling powerful again is getting yourself worked up and angry. Right. So you'll often see anxious kids, and not just kids, by the way, exhibiting this angry behavior. So these are some of the things to keep in mind in terms of what to look out for if you do suspect that your child is experiencing some anxiety.
Yeah, and that's one thing in the show, Dear Evan Hansen. There are 2 children in the show who both are experiencing anxiety, but they do play it out in different ways. One, maybe a little more reserved and afraid to mingle with his classmates, and another comes across as that bully.
Yeah, absolutely. That's an absolutely accurate portrayal of kind of the emotional dynamic that goes on. And that was one of the reasons why I and so many of my colleagues globally, I think, were so impressed with Inside Out as well, because they really got that dynamic spot on. And from the sounds of it, this show did as well. There's definitely that interplay between fear-based emotions, anger-based emotions, and then with certain children, again, every child will be a little bit different, but sometimes you may also see that in moments of great overwhelm as a result of this anxiety, children may shift from showing anger, even fear, to showing sadness, this clinginess again that I mentioned before, and withdrawal as well, if it just all becomes, a little bit too much for them.
Right. And so what can a parent do? What would be the first step that a parent can take if they see this in their child and they're wondering, is this something that they're going through?
Right. So one of the things that I think parents also need to keep in mind, especially if they have more than one child and if they have boys and girls as well, is that girls do tend to experience anxiety more than boys do. And this is true for depression as well. And we would need kind of a whole other conversation to go into the biological and hormonal developmental reasons for that. But I think the first and most important thing for parents to really do is give their children the benefit of the doubt. So I listed a number of symptoms just now, and there's also many more, and many of them can be a result of other causes as well. And so parents and teachers sometimes will dismiss these behaviors as, either laziness or bad behavior, provocation, defiance, and so on. So the first thing is really to trust your child, to give them the benefit of the doubt that something really is going on. And then if you notice any of these symptoms, behaviors, emotions happening, follow your child's lead for a few days and just observe them, see how these things play out, and then speak to them about it, of course, in an age-appropriate way. So you could say something like, for example, I've noticed that you're not quite as excited about going to soccer practice anymore as you were before. And I was wondering what might have changed for you that has taken that excitement away. So something along those lines.
Yeah.
And then after that, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead. That's very helpful. Go on.
Sure. And so then the next thing really is to be very patient. And, if you have a shy child or if you have an introverted child, those parents will know what that can look like. They may not open up, their heart and their mind to you immediately and tell you exactly what is going wrong as compared to, more chatty, more talkative, open, extroverted children. So if they need some space and time, give it to them, and really give it to them freely and non-judgmentally. And see what comes out of your conversations, and notice if your child is, and this is really key for anxiety, if they're making interpretations or assumptions about, their environment that are not accurate and that are causing the anxiety. Because these kind of skewed assumptions are often at the core of anxiety for both children and adults. So see if you can help them take a more balanced and realistic view and work to generate some ideas together with your child about how you can tackle some of these issues. And then, of course, ultimately, if none of this is helping and your child is still feeling the same, absolutely seek professional help. And I can't stress enough, don't hesitate or be embarrassed, because these are treatable issues. As with everything else, the earlier you catch them, the better the outcome will be. And they're definitely not a result of, your inability to help your child.
Right. And I feel like that there can be such a stigma on mental health, and there shouldn't be. Like, for instance, on October 10th, that was Mental Health Awareness Day. And it is so important. Yeah. To just know that it's much more common than you might think. Dear Evan Hansen works closely with mental health nonprofits, including Child Mind Institute and the JED Foundation, because we know that this is so important, just as important, if not more, than a child's physical health. And we need to pay the utmost attention. Now, talking about paying attention to all of that, I feel like a lot of parents may miss these signs because children are so distracted by technology nowadays that they're not really having as many conversations as they used to.
Yes, yeah, definitely. One aspect of the story of technology use, which I'm very focused on in my work and parenting in the age of technology in particular. One aspect is the distraction of children. And a few years ago, once we really started paying attention to the impact that technology has, we were at first only focused on the kids. And then about a year or two into it, we kind of turned our gaze into the direction of the parents and asked, well, hang on, what are the parents doing? And we realized, well, the parents are actually quite distracted themselves. So absolutely, this is something that children themselves are reporting as well, according to some recent findings from organizations such as Common Sense Media. So we're seeing reports that over 50%, in some cases, over 50% of adolescents have some experience of trying to get their parents' attention and failing to do so, feeling ignored. So there's definitely a kind of distraction on both sides of that relationship. And this is really a serious issue. And I think many parents do realize this, and they're realizing it more and more. But I fear that many also don't, because our tech use is at best interrupting and at worst severing our connections with the people around us. And we have to take, I think, a very hard and honest look at our behavior in relation to our tech, and then begin making some repairs as soon as possible, because there's nothing more important to a child's social and emotional development than to feel seen by their parents. Mm-hmm. And this is how they know that they matter, that they are relevant in this world. And when they're very, very young, this is how they know that, that they are, that they actually exist, by being seen. And this is what provides the very foundation of every other healthy developmental milestone that, your child will reach. But if you're too busy to make your child feel this way, you're shaking up that foundation. I realize that may sound a little bit apocalyptic when I say that, but
I agree with you.
Yeah, it is. It really is just the simple truth of child development. They know that they exist because we make them feel that they exist and that they matter and that they're the focus of our attention. But if we, shift our focus onto a device of whatever kind, there's only so much of our attention that can go out. So I think that might be one of the helpful ways in which parents can think about that. Whatever attention you're dedicating to the device, to your social media, to texting, whatever it might be, watching YouTube videos, that's the attention and the time and the connection that's taken away from your child in that moment.
Yeah, 100%. And I know that when my daughter was born, I found myself looking at my phone a lot whenever I could to catch up on emails. And I said, what, this has to stop. And it really does. It has to stop from the moment your child is born. Thank you so much, Teodora Pavkovic. This has been so helpful, such an informative segment. If somebody would like to get in touch with you, how can they reach you?
So there are a few different ways. People can find me on my website, which is so TEOP coaching.com. I'm also on Facebook at 1BEACKON. That's One Beacon. And then on Twitter, I'm at capital PSY Coach and capital TP.
Perfect. Thank you so much for joining me today. I think this is a topic that a lot of parents need to be aware of, both for themselves and for their children. Coming up next, we're going to speak with Dr. Donnica Moore. She's going to talk to us about a health issue that many of us women experience but don't want to talk about. More coming up next. I'm Michelle Jerson, and you're listening to Passport Mommy. Welcome back to Mom Talk Radio. I'm Michelle Jerson with Passport Mommy. And on the line with me, I have Dr. Donnica Moore. She is the founding co-chair of the annual National Congress on Women's Health. She is highly regarded as a women's health expert and advocate, as a physician educator, and as a media commentator. She is with Salix Pharmaceuticals, and she is just entertaining and engaging. And I'm thrilled to have her on because we're going to talk about a topic that I think a lot of women don't necessarily necessarily bring up in everyday conversation, whether they feel a little embarrassed about it, whatever the case, but they really shouldn't because it is so common. Dr. Moore, thanks so much for joining me today.
Oh, my pleasure.
We're going to talk today about IBS-D, which is irritable bowel syndrome, and then tell me what the D is.
The D stands for diarrhea. And, it's interesting. Mommies have no problem talking about all our kids' issues with bowel problems.
Right.
But we really are a little bit delicate about talking about our own because it is embarrassing. It's also painful. So IBS is a very common intestinal disorder. The IBS-D is a type of IBS that's associated with an unpredictable type of diarrhea. It can also be accompanied by abdominal pain, cramping, gas, bloating, and this sense of urgency that if we don't get to the bathroom right away, we're going to need the diaper bag.
Right,
for
right.
us, not for our child. And I think, a little humor goes a long way, but it's not a funny situation. It's not a laughing situation because this really interferes with people's quality of life. There are people who change their activities, change their social life, change their engagements, change their work habits. And it can also really contribute to anxiety and depression.
Sure, absolutely. So what brings on IBS?
So there's many different causes. In every medical condition, we talk about risk factors, right? So, of course, family history, anxiety and depression can be a risk factor. We used to think it was a cause. Now we kind of think it's a chicken and egg situation. But new research has focused on whether an imbalance of the gut microbiome is potentially the leading cause of IBS-D. And in fact, one study showed that of people with IBS, 73% had an imbalance in their gut microbiome compared to only 16% of healthy people.
That's interesting. So how does somebody go ahead and try to correct this? I mean, I know probiotics is a big thing, but what can people do who are struggling with this?
Well, we actually don't know definitively about the role of probiotics. That's still an area that needs a lot more study, but it's certainly not a treatment. We all agree that it's not a treatment. The most important thing for people to do is to see their healthcare provider if they have any unusual abdominal symptoms. We wouldn't hesitate to take our kids to the doctor if they had, a medical problem, but we don't really always put ourselves on the top of our to-do list. So the bad news is only about 30% of people who suffer from this actually consult a physician. And of those, we know that the average length of time it took them to get their butts to the doctor was about 4 years. So that's great. The other bad news is there's no cure for this. The good news is there's a very wide range of treatment options. So one of the, of course, your doctor will recommend lifestyle changes and stress management and more exercise, which is good for just about everything. But they also tend to recommend things like fiber and then antispasmodic therapy. The bad news about that is that about 70% of people who are prescribed those therapies don't respond. So the really important tip is if your doctor recommends anything for you for any medical condition that's not working, you have to go back.
Right,
this is not a one-shot. This is not like treating strep throat or a bladder infection.
Right, and I feel like a lot of people, they just give up. They say, oh, I tried. Oh, well, nothing else I can do. And they'll just continue suffering.
They think that's the only choice. But if you go back, there are other treatments. There are newer treatment options, and there are treatments that target the specific imbalance of the gut microbiome. So that's very exciting.
That is exciting, and I would love to read up more about it personally. Where can people go for more information?
Well, the most important place to go for any personal medical information, obviously, is your own personal healthcare provider. But to read online, we have a great website at ibsdupclose.com. And this gives a lot more background information, a lot more information about, how you can help manage it, not just treat it, but also suggested questions you can ask your doctor, which is, really helpful.
Yeah, and that is really important. I feel like a lot of people go online and they feel Google is the answer. No, you you probably want to still go to your doctor, but that is a great guide so that you are going informed and prepared and you know what to ask. Dr. Moore, thank you so much for joining us today. Very informative. Thanks so much for listening to Mom Talk Radio. Don't forget you can follow me on social, passportmommy.com and Passport Mommy on all of the social handles. Have a great rest of the day, and I'll talk to you next week.